What's going on, everyone? It's Chris, and welcome back to Madden Maniac Previews. How's everyone doing today? So, we are going to do the Jets and Niners now, and by the end of this, we'll be a quarter of a way through our previews. So, let us get into it right now. And, yeah, I guess these are the fourth worst teams from last year. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do a quick presentation. That might shorten our the episode a little bit, and that will help because there's a lot of dead time, unfortunately. There's a lot of dead time in the last episode that I was not happy with. So we're gonna make that adjustment now. That's the game. The connection between these two teams outside of that fourth worst team last year was they both have young quarterbacks that are going to hopefully be their future. One that you know is going to start right away, and the other that we're not too sure about. We're going to be starting with that team, the New York Jets. And as we kick off here, might as well get started with the question of who the fuck is going to start for the Jets come week 1. So I know that I talked about in the Cleveland preview about my opinion that Baker Mayfield should start. And that's because so far I've seen Baker Mayfield perform better than Tyrod Taylor. With that being said, a lot of that reason for that was I felt like they've looked better, that he's looked better. He looks more ready to start. I understand that they want to develop him, and that's fine. But that was my opinion about him. But when it comes to Sam Darnold and his competition, first of all, I think we can probably rule out at this point Josh McCown to start. I would be kind of surprised at this point if he starts. I mean, he may. I don't know, but there is. It just seems like the conversation has shifted a little bit with the Jets from Josh McCown versus Sam Darnold to Teddy Bridgewater versus Sam Darnold. And in my view, it might be better for the Jets. I know they're looking to trade Teddy, but I think that it would be better for them to start Teddy, especially if they want to win games this year. If they don't and they still want to make it seem like a rebuild, then start Darnold right away. That no question. But Todd Bowles is entering his 4th season, hasn't made the playoffs yet, and you can't. The patience has to be running thin now with New York. So I think that this team needs to have someone that is going to help win them games. And thus far in the preseason, we already know that doesn't have to always be accurate. It usually is not accurate. But it's at least a good idea of like how we can judge things, how we see things sometimes. And right now, I think that Teddy Bridgewater has shown that he's a better quarterback right now than Sam Darnold. And that's why I think that they should start him, unless they get something really good in compensation from another team. A second-round pick, I think, should be like the minimum that they ask for, because he's played very, very well, and he should be a starter somewhere. You know, that would come if someone goes down with injury or whatever. But Teddy should be very, very much considered a factor in this race, and he should start. And Sam Darnold should be on the bench. Learning from him should be the backup. You can keep Josh McCown on the roster. I'm sure that he will or you could cut him and he'll find a new team, or you could keep him and have him be kind of like a player quarterback coach. Like we've said before we've seen before how Josh McCown has played a coaching role on that team. So you never know. Regardless, I'm very excited to see what Sam Darnold can do. I just haven't really been impressed yet. I think he throws a lot of short passes, very easy passes. He hasn't really gotten too like he hasn't done anything like incredible yet. Everyone's like really excited about him, and I get it. but I would be hesitant right now because and that doesn't mean that he won't be good. He could very well be very good at some point, and it's going to be very exciting. But right now, I don't think he's 100% ready to be ready to start and win. But again, if the Jets, it depends on how the Jets want to approach this year. Because if they really think that they should focus on rebuilding, then by all means start Darnold. But if they think that, look, this is a good roster this year, let's see if we can win some games, then I think the Teddy should be a consideration. So with that being said, let's move on to the running backs. The two people that I'm looking at running back right now is Elijah McGuire and Bilal Powell. Those were the two starters last year. I think that will continue on to this year. Now, I know that Isaiah Crowell was amongst the conversation, obviously, because he was a free agent acquisition, one of the bigger names that were acquired by the Jets. But here's the problem with Isaiah Crowell. His performance in Cleveland was not ideal. It wasn't great, and I know right now he's listed as a starter, but right now the two guys with more talent on that team over him is the two guys I just named. McGuire very much as a power back, and he has the ability just to zoom down the field. And Bilal Powell is versatile. You catch the ball, he can run the ball from out of the backfield. He can do a lot, and I've loved watching him during those games. So if I'm the Jets, I would have those guys be the focus. Now, Elijah McGuire is injured right now, which is why I think Isaiah Crowell is getting so much love, getting such a focus right now, because they can't really do anything without McGuire there. But I really like him, and I hope that he is used to his full potential. And I think that would involve maybe not using Crowell as much as maybe initially planned. The deep group for the Jets, in my view, is their wide receiver group. Quincy Enunwa is back, which is big, that he's very fun to watch. Robbie Anderson, he has a lot of off-field issues. I don't know what's happening with him, but if he could stay on the field, he's usually very reliable. Jermaine Kearse, I think that the Jets won that trade. The Jets easily won the trade between them and Seattle, because Sheldon Richardson was an issue for them, was toxic for that team, moved on to Seattle, and now he's with the Vikings, and hopefully he has a good career there. But Jermaine Kearse immediately made an impact, and he had such a solid year. And I think that he's going to have a good year again. And it's those three that I think about. But then you have Terrell Pryor, who was fantastic for Cleveland, had a terrible year last year with Washington. Now he's gotten over the injuries, and maybe he could have a successful time with the New York Jets. You never know. And then you have Chad Hansen, and you have a few other guys that are deep in that depth chart that can do really good things. So that's a good group. The problem is going to be offensive line and tight end, because I think with offensive line, I think your solid starter is James Carpenter. He's played pretty well at guard. He's been there for a while now, and I think he's been there since 2015, and so he's very reliable. Spencer Long's now at center, who I kind of do like him. He's been with Washington for a long time, and I think that it's important for him to be there. Brian Winters, he needs to make a leap, and you have Brandon Snell, I think his name is Brandon Shell or Snell. But regardless, I'm not as high on him. I think he needs some time to still develop. And Kelvin Betcham is a journeyman guy at this point. This is his third team that he's on. Right now, the tackles are a concern, but the interior is not too bad. They also have in the backing up Spencer Long, at least I believe, is Travis Swanson, who I thought was also pretty good for Detroit. But I think he's actually deep on the depth chart. He's behind Jonathan Harrison, I guess. I have no idea who that is. I've never even seen that guy's name before. So that's a concern. And tight end for me, Eric Tomlinson, Jordan Leggett. neither of those guys have really proven to be big in the mix, and the Jets have a history of not doing, or at least recent history of not doing well at tight end. So that would be a big concern for me on that front. But outside that, you do have playmakers at running back. You have a ton of depth at wide receiver, and you have a quarterback battle that is not about who's the least mediocre. It's now who can actually win games for this franchise, who can actually do things. And we know it's going to be Darnold in the long term, but in the short term, could Teddy take those reins and then him get traded? You never know. Now let's move on to defense here. They are I can talk about the good parts of it soon, but we gotta just focus on the rough parts. And it used to be the strength of this team. But defensive line is rough this year. Leonard Williams is the best player on that group. And he had one really good year, but since that one good year, he hasn't really done anything amazing. That one good year, of course, I believe was 2016. But he needs to do a better job at getting after the quarterback. He needs to do a better job at just getting that pressure on and really wrecking people's shit. And he can, and I know it that he can. I really, really like him as a player. I just really need to see more out of him. I think this year he could do it, but it's just he really needs to make it that he can be that first round draft pick, that top 10, almost top 5 prospect. He needs to make sure that he is, he shows himself to be a potential Hall of Famer one day. Right now, it's nowhere close. So, and then you have Steve McClendon, who has been on the team for a little bit. I think ever since Damon Harrison left. And he's done well enough where he's kept the job. I don't think he's been outstanding. He certainly is not Harrison. And that would be a concern to me if I'm the Jets. But Nathan Shepard is the other starter on the defensive line, and I'm looking forward to watching him. He's vicious, and I like his style. I like the way that he plays, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him go. And he's a rookie, so he probably won't play amazing out of the gate, but he'll probably make an impact. He's from Canada, I believe. It's fun to see like random international players make an impact, but you could do that. And then you have the linebacking core, and the big addition for this linebacking core was Avery Williamson, who is from Tennessee, and Tennessee had a pretty decent defense, not amazing, but pretty good. And I really liked him. Because I think he managed the defense pretty well. Like he's kind of like he's the one of the middle linebackers, so I think he can lead that group very well. He's gonna be lined up next to Darren Lee, who he's entering his third season. I can't believe that. His third season, and Lee needs to make a leap. He hasn't been at his peak either. He needs to get better. And I think Avery Williamson will help in that regard with that, because I do really like those guys. The two outside linebackers right now, Josh Martin, Jordan Jenkins, it's not. They're just not solid right now. It's that position is also kind of lacking depth. A lot of pass rush issues right now for the Jets, which again, that used to be their trademark. And right now they're in a little bit of a rut on that front. But the strength of this defense is gonna be the secondary, and boy oh boy, the second year of Jamal Adams is gonna be a hell of a ride. First of all, he's all over social media. He's making me laugh. He's hilarious, and I am really looking forward to seeing him play. He's gonna do wonders for that secondary and for that team. And Marcus May too. The two of them side by side, they're gonna be just an impact safety duo for the Jets. And Maurice Claiborne is also he's a undrafted or not undrafted. Jesus, he's an unrestricted free agent from Dallas. He came over, I believe, last year. And he has played. He didn't play like amazing, but he played pretty well for the Jets. I'm pretty sure he played last year. I'm getting him mixed up. I think with someone else right now. But from what I remember from him, he played relatively. Yeah, he played. He was with them last year, and he did well. So that's someone to look forward to. And of course, the big ticket free agent was Tremaine Johnson from the Rams, and to have him and Claiborne next to each other. That secondary is good. Is really good, and I think it's gonna be that they're gonna need to win a lot of games off of that secondary defensively, right? You know, so a lot of the middle is good, maybe with the exception of the nose tackle right now. But even Steve, I don't mean to shun Steve McLendon. Like he can play. I just I'm not as high on him, but. I think that the inside linebackers, the safeties, and the cornerbacks, they're all good. It's just outside linebackers. It's the defensive ends that they all those guys they need to improve, and we'll see how it goes. I think that they could afford to sign one more big ticket pass rusher if possible, or trade for one. The Jets. So that's my view of it right now. And they're also having kicker issues. The Jets. We haven't really talked a lot of kicker with these teams, but they I know like right now they just picked up Jason Myers off of waivers. Carlos Santos is dealing with an injury. There's another guy I don't even recognize his name, but he's like in the mix too. Taylor Bertolet. You got I think they're bringing Kai Forbath, who was just cut by the Vikings. I think they're bringing him in for a visit. So a lot of interesting stuff happening for the Jets with kicking. But I would say overall, with this Jets team right now, I like them more than I like the other two AFC East teams at the moment. I might feel differently once I start talking about maybe the Dolphins, but right now, I think that there's a little bit more depth. With that being said, this AFC East, I think, is the weakest that I've seen since starting to watch football. And that's not a good thing at all. Because you would think that for the years that the Patriots have dominated, that these three teams would be figuring out ways to get better, not figure out ways to get worse. The Bills got so much worse, and we'll talk about that much later in the series. But yeah, and then the Dolphins, I'm just not high on. But this Jets team, I'm not high on either because I still think they lack depth on a lot of key positions. But what's gonna help them is having competent quarterback play, which is why I'm still I'm saying just start Teddy. Let's see what happens with Teddy. And if he plays bad, then you start Darnold. It's not at the end of the world. You just try it, see what happens, and then if Teddy plays bad, then I guess then the value is lost at that point. But then know too that if you get the minute you get a really good pitch, you gotta take it too. So there's multiple things the Jets can do with that quarterback position, because they may want to start Teddy Bridgewater, but at some point they may also be like, well. He's, this team's offering us a second-round pick. Maybe. I mean, if they offer a first, fucking take it. Oh my god, forget it. But if they offer a second, then that's something to think about. Why not? But yeah, and then with Todd Bowles right now, he's I still like him as a head coach. And, that might be a very unpopular opinion, but I still feel like he's been better than, I don't know. I like him more than, Rex Ryan. I think that the one thing I wish that he did, I think he's starting to do that, he needs to have a little bit more personality with these guys. He needs to have, I think that he has, though. I think that he has gotten close with this locker room, and I think he's made the locker room a little bit more bearable overall. Um, but he needs to get better in some of his play calls that he's doing, and he's gonna have to put the faith in his assistant coaches as well. Like Jeremy Bates is now the new offensive coordinator. You gotta rely on him to run this offense and be able. They need to win games this year. I really think that. I think they need to try their best this year because I don't know how patient the Johnsons are gonna be. I do not know. It'll be interesting to see how that how they handle this year. Unless the Johnsons are like, look, let's take this year to be a developmental year. They could do that. I don't think they will though. I don't think they should. Because there's a lot of good players on this team that you don't know how long they could stay. It's. I mean, unless they like, this is something I was wondering the other day. But do you think that a lot of the AFC East teams might be waiting for like Brady or Belichick to retire or go away to contend? Like, are they like giving up? Because it feels like that sometimes, and it's such a pathetic division. It's such a shame. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Patriots. They've kicked ass and they've gone out of a lot of rough situations, including against their own divisional opponents. But it is, especially I think this year is just, it's not great. But the Jets, if they really want to rival the Patriots this year and really want to make a push, they got to make the right decision and they got to make the right. They need to get after Brady, constantly put pressure on him, which I think is impossible with this pass rush as it stands right now. And they need to have a quarterback who's ready to go. Could be Teddy, or could be could be Darnold if Darnold's right. Let's see. They got the Lions to start out everything right now. And that the Lions, they're a little bit of an enigma to me. I'm still not super high on that defense for the Lions. That will help the Jets. But that Lions offense would be a concern if I was a Jets fan, because I don't know. Again, you want to get after Stafford. You want to make sure that he doesn't have the opportunity to throw to his receivers. The secondary will help. The secondary will be a huge impact. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen with that. And that's Monday Night Football. I'm gonna try to pull up the schedule for each season for each team. Jets schedule. There you go. Let's see. So they have the Dolphins after that. It's a winnable game. Those division games are relatively winnable. They could beat the Browns potentially. I don't think they could beat the Jaguars. That's scary. Broncos. That's a hard team to judge right now. There's a chance. Then they face the Colts. Could happen. Vikings, no fucking way. The Jets are beating them. Then they face the Bears. No, I think the Bears could probably take care of business there. And they have the Dolphins again, the Bills, Patriots. Then they have the Titans, which I'm like, I wouldn't say that they're in the mix there. I think they will lose that game. Then Bills again, then Texans. No, still no, still not a fan. Packers, Jets, no, and then Jets, Patriots. Yeah, so here's the thing. They're facing the toughest division in the NFC North. So that's going to be an issue. They're also facing the AFC South, which is also deeper now. And they will face the Browns, and Broncos, who have kind of gotten better since the offseason, but they're winnable. But then you have the Patriots; they have to face twice, and then maybe the Bills and Dolphins. But even then, like, I just think about it, and I'm looking at this team, and it's right now it's 6-10, 8-8 record, maybe. That's a positive point of view of it. It could be worse, or they could surprise, but they really need to look at maybe improvement on the offensive line, maybe improvement at tight end, but certainly improvement on pass rush. I guess you could look at running back. I don't really see the purpose of it right now unless McGuire doesn't get healthy and you can't trust Crowell. And then and then of course the quarterback. So we'll see how the Jets do. I think the Jets have a bright future, but a lot of what happens this year relies on how much trust that the ownership has in Todd Bowles in the process as it stands right now. That is the biggest question more than anything else right now, is how do the Jets how does Jets ownership view Todd Bowles' performance? And look, it's not like if Todd Bowles goes, that's all gonna fall apart. I mean, he's not the main reason why the Jets have been successful in the past, but I think that he's better than most of like the middle of the line head coaches. Like, they're kind of like, I think he's like the best of like one of the best of the head coaches you question right now. So we'll see how it goes. All right, got 10 seconds left on the clock. Will the Jets kneel to end this shit? Or they're gonna go? Looks like they're gonna run a play. They're just gonna run out the clock here. All right, who is gonna make the playoffs first, Jets or the Niners? I have a quick halftime, I just realized. I think Niners. I think the Niners have a little bit more depth than the Jets, and I think I have more faith in Kyle Shanahan than I do in Todd Bowles at the moment. So that's my opinion. Let's talk about the Niners. So obviously the question is, the focus is going to be on Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo has trained so long under Tom Brady, and he comes in at the end of last year and he wins 5 straight games, is currently undefeated going into this season, and that's all kind of surreal. He clearly elevated the talent level around him, and the offense around him has gotten better in the offseason. They still have Maurice Goodwin and Pierre Garcon as starting wide receivers in that group, but they added Dante Pettis in the draft, who I like. He's kind of deep down on the depth chart, but I really loved watching him in Washington. And then you have Joe Staley starting still, the Pro Bowler. That offensive line should still be holding up strong, and then they drafted Mike McGlinchey, so he's going to be on the right tackle. If he plays well, that's your offensive tackle is pretty much held down. This is where Weston Richburg ended up. Talked about him a few episodes ago. Love him so much, and I think he's going to kick ass as the center. Then you have Joshua Garnett, who was a first-round draft pick for the Niners a little bit ago. He needs to get to like a really high level, but it's good that the Niners are still using him and are relying on him still. And then you have Laken Tomlinson, who they traded to traded for last year in August. So they're still relying on him. He's going to be the starting left guard. So that's not a bad offensive line. That's going to be really important for Jimmy G to have that protection. And then you have the running backs in Jerick McKinnon and Matt Breida, who are both injured, unfortunately, right now. So we'll see how they are week one. There's a lot of optimism. McKinnon will be ready for week one, and they need him. And they do have Alfred Morris, who has played more of like a background role in recent years with the Cowboys. And I think that I would be very surprised if they don't use him for this in this upcoming year. I'd be surprised if he gets cut. So I think Jerick McKinnon's gonna be the starter. I think Matt Breida is gonna be used if healthy, and I think Alfred Morris will also be used. I think that's the extent to what's happening. I think like Jeremy McNichols, and they've been using him as a starter, at least in the last game. I don't see that happening again. And I've lost faith in him since everything that happened with the Buccaneers, and it's just he was just not ready for this level. And Kyle Juszczyk, from Baltimore 2 years ago, he came over and he was used a lot with Kyle Shanahan. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's a big part of that offense again. So yeah, it's a pretty decent backfield. It's not anything amazing. You don't have like that single star running back. And I shouldn't say star if I'm Niners fans. I'm sorry. The Dallas rivalry. No, I don't think that you're gonna see anything. Shit, I forgot what I was gonna say. You're not gonna see a star running back come out of this group right now, but potentially you could see one, maybe in a future draft, that could help alleviate some pressure off of Garoppolo's back. Also at tight end, I missed this, but right now Garrett Selleck is going to be the starter, but there is a lot of hype around George Kittle, and I think I might be wrong. I think he might be injured right now, but a lot of people are high on him. He was a really interesting player when I think he was with Iowa. I just remember watching him in college, and I remember he was a really important. Yeah, he's from Iowa. It's one of those black and yellow schools, but I remember watching him, and he was a lot of fun to watch in college. And I think that it would make sense at some point for him to become the starter, but we'll see how that goes. And so Jimmy G is, I think, in good hands with Kyle Shanahan, and a guy that he was orchestrated some of the greatest offenses in recent memory, especially with the Falcons, and you might see some of the same this year. But there is some concern with this team, at least on the defensive side, because first of all, Solomon Thomas is right now, I think he's in the concussion protocol still. Could be wrong about that. Or is he concussed or does he have an injury? Something happened in like the first game that he ended up walking out. Let me see. But that is really important. That's a really important player to lose. Let's see. Solomon Thomas, remains in the concussion protocol as of today. So that's a bit worrisome, because that's now entering 2 weeks now almost 2 weeks since his concussion. That's a little rough. So you have to be worried about that. But if he returns, that's going to make that defensive line much better. And DeForest Buckner is pretty good. Arik Armstead has not been playing well for the Niners, and there's a good chance that he's not on the team at some point. Maybe he gets traded, maybe he gets cut, but he has not really performed at the level that many expected him to go when he was first drafted. And of course, there's Reuben Foster. Um, you know, a lot really worried about him in terms of his off-field behavior. Um, I believe he is going to be suspended to start the season. But he'd be a great player, but again, you go back to all the other conversations about off-field stuff. You had to be held accountable for it. So we'll see how that plays out. Malcolm Smith is returning from injury. He got injured late last year, or early last year rather. So he's gonna be an important member of that group. But overall, I would say like their front seven needs some work. It really needs to stand out. There are some players deep on the depth that not too deep on the depth chart that could end up being impact players later down the line for them, but I'm not like a too big of a fan of their front seven, and that's going to be a concern. But their secondary seems interesting, especially of course with the Richard Sherman, and I think that's really going to be the standout guy more than anyone else in that secondary. There is questions with him. Is he healthy, and is he going to be at the level that he used to be with Seattle? God, the league is better if Richard Sherman is healthy. Like, let's be real. He's as long as he's relevant, he makes the league fun. And so I am really, really, really hoping that he comes in this year and he's like killing everybody, smack talking everyone, and he's just shutting down opponents, because all that's super fucking exciting. So yeah, so that's that with him. Right now the starters on the secondary are Akella Witherspoon, Adrian Colbert, Keith Tart, and then they have the backups right here listed as Jimmy Ward, Anton Exum, DJ Reed, and Greg Mabin. Jimmy Ward's interesting. He's been on the team since 2014, first round draft pick. Has been kind of put on the back burner as a second teamer. DJ Reed is a fascinating prospect that was drafted out of Kansas State. I don't know if he's probably not gonna be a starter to get to once it's all said and done. But interesting depth there. Yeah, I and then they have the nickelback in Quan Williams, who I like a lot. It's an interesting group right now. Again, nothing that I'm like super big on. But I think that the defense is going to be what is going to be interesting to see who stands out of that group, who's going to end up making that side of the ball relevant. And obviously Richard Sherman's the big name that pops out, but there's certainly other players that could have an impact as well. So I think the main focus for this Niners team is going to be the offense, and then the defense. It was playing well at the end of last year, so we'll see how it goes. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how all of it transpires. If the offense, if first of all, if Jimmy G can stay undefeated, how long that can happen? Because I mean, they have a really difficult test right out of the gate. They have to face fucking Minnesota. It's like, well, this sucks. like oh no. And I'm curious to see if that offense against the Minnesota defense is going to be one of the very, very important matchups to watch in Week 1. How do they handle that adversity? Because Jimmy G faced the Jaguars defense and did very well. So how in retrospect is that going to affect how is that experience going to affect how he plays against Minnesota, which I think arguably also got better on the defensive side of the ball. So that is the major one to watch right now. Yeah, but Yeah, it's an interesting group, and then you have that defense going up against, Kirk Cousins, in that offense, which has done like he has been a little bit in between right now, but that offense is gonna be right as of right now. It's in full force with Kirk Cousins starting, Dalvin Cook's back, the wide receivers are starting still, like they're healthy. Kyle Rudolph is there as well, so the tight end's there. Like all the weapons that are really important are there for Minnesota. So that's going to be a really tough test for a defense that still has a lot of improvement to go, a lot of places to to get to. So yeah, that's just that is the bottom line right now in terms of this Niners team. It's hard for me to think of anything else specifically. Let's look at the schedule for the team, because they start out against Minnesota, which is a very, very difficult thing to do, as we just discussed. Let's see schedule. And then they face the Lions next. So the Jets and Niners are your 1 and 2 for the Lions. Take note of that, Detroit fans. Which I would say, like, if let's say they lose the first game, I think that they have a shot against the Lions. So I'm gonna say, let's say that's a win. I think they could beat the Chiefs, so that's 2. I don't know if they could beat the Chargers, so I'll hold off on that. They could certainly beat the Cardinals. I think they won't beat. They could beat the Packers. All right, if they could, I'll say it. So let's, Packers, why not? Rams, I don't think they'll be competitive, and I'm excited to see that matchup of Jimmy G versus the Rams. But I think the Rams are a little bit better right now. Let's say they sweep the Cardinals though. Then they have, I think they could beat the Raiders. They could beat the Giants. They could beat the Buccaneers. They could beat the Seahawks. I think they'll split with the Seahawks. Broncos that's a winnable game. Yeah, I think they could win against the Bears. They could be a really good team this year. It's a mix between, they might be like just above the winning record. I don't think that this is a team that's gonna be a losing record. Considering the way that the offense is running, despite the lack of defensive depth, this team is looking kind of good. So I think that they're going to be an impact team on that front. Now, they don't have as difficult as a schedule. Yes, they have to face the NFC North, which is going to be difficult for sure. But the AFC West, they also have to face. And the fact that the Seahawks and Cardinals are in the division, which are 2 of the weaker teams right now, which is really still surprising to say, but it's true right now. That's not too bad at all. At least, again, in my view. Is that an interception? Okay. That's true. Terry, I kind of skimmed over his name earlier, but I remember him making a pretty good impact last year. So again, you have these smaller names that not a lot of people know about that could end up making an impact on that defensive side of the ball. So it's hard for me to completely shit on them, especially since I'm not like completely sure about everything with the Niners and their defense. But you just have to see how it plays out. If it's gonna be, if it's that, I don't think that is going to be a huge issue for them, considering how well that team as a whole played with Jimmy G's presence. The defense, I think, did play better with Jimmy G, because I think they had it. That usually, it's weird with how that works. The better the quarterback, the better the defense ends up being, because of the fact that you play against them in practice and you kind of learn a lot of your mistakes. You make a lot of those mistakes in those practices and you realize, okay, maybe I should do that. And then when you play against a lesser quarterback on another team, it's like, well, this is a cakewalk in comparison. So that's how the defense kind of gets help with the arrival of a better quarterback. So yeah, I think that's kind of what started happening last year once Jimmy G started started playing, and yeah, I'm super excited to see Richard Sherman in a Niners uniform, and I'm excited to see how the running backs are used in this system, because that was a fascinating aspect of the Falcons 2016 run, was how Freeman and Coleman were used, and I think that they're going to do the same with McKinnon and Barbera. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. And potentially Morris now, if he's going to be used. He's a fascinating Shanahan. There's something about him that's like, holy shit. And the fact that John Lynch is the general manager is still crazy to me. That's surreal that he's been the general manager of the Niners, and he's done a great job. I genuinely think he's done a fascinating job as general manager thus far. And it was so unexpected when he was hired, but he deserves credit. He deserves credit for the deals that he's done and the people he's signed. I guess, yeah. There's just, yeah. Let's see how this year plays out, because there's a lot. This team has a lot of high expectations right now. I think that it should be somewhat tempered, because we don't know if Jimmy G is going to be able to do what he did at the end of last year for 16 games. I doubt it. I think there's going to be some struggles. There's going to be some hiccups. Again, the defense, don't get too excited about that group. But this is a team that is on the rise. It's getting better, and it's nice to see a season where we're not talking about the new Niners head coach, where we're talking about a guy going into his second year as a Niners head coach and actually doing good things. It's good to see that again. And I think that having it's interesting looking at him as a head coach, because it's him and McVay that are kind of looking into this new age thinking. There's this new age way of coaching that takes a lot from colleges and implements them into the NFL. And you're going to see that we talked about that with the Bears a little bit as well, that they're going to implement some of that. So you're starting to see where a lot of people were like, oh, well, college offenses are falling behind or going way ahead of the NFL. And so now when you go to the NFL, things are going to be much different. And it's going to be hard to develop players that way. That's kind of starting to change, because now the NFL is adapting to those college techniques, and that's what's making these offenses so fascinating. And I think that a lot of the old school head coaches, that's why they're starting to kind of get weeded out every once in a while, because those ideas are going away. Now, what's interesting, of course, is that one of the main people that brought that to the NFL was former Niners head coach Chip Kelly. I think, I don't know what led to Chip Kelly's firing, specifically. I don't know the details on that front. It is fascinating to me as to why it didn't work for him in Philadelphia and in San Francisco for those two stints, but it's working for everyone else in the NFL, for the other younger head coaches in the NFL. I wonder if it's how he coached, maybe he didn't have a connection with the players. Maybe it was more him as a person than him as in his schemes, because a lot of people went after him for the way that he coached and the way that how he implemented things, because it was just not the NFL way. This is all college shit and just doesn't work in the NFL level. But it is working with all these head coaches. They're using that shit, especially McVay and Shanahan. They're being innovative, and I don't understand why people are not, it's hard for me to understand why it didn't work for Chip Kelly, but it's been working with those guys. I think there's a better connection between these guys and their players, probably, and that's all kind of working together very well. But that's an exciting Niners Rams, man. Those two teams are so exciting with those head coaches, and it's gonna be fun as fuck to see them play against each other on that Sunday Night Football game. That's gonna be fucking amazing. I'm ready. Give it to me. I am so psyched for that. I do think that the Rams are a better team right now, but you never know. You never know with those two guys and the way that they work. You never know how it can go. It really should be fascinating. Yeah, all right. We're down to a minute 46 here. So even with quick presentation, still relatively slow here, but hey, we made it to 50 minutes, and we've been going strong with the commentary and stuff. So, I'm pretty happy about it. But again, I guess for the overarching statement for both of these teams, it's hard to compare them because it is like two different eras happening right now. We're entering the fourth season of the Todd Bowles era. We're entering only the second year of Kyle Shanahan, and there's just so much more hope right now with Kyle Shanahan. It makes sense because he's been there for less time, but it's also because of we know what's happening with Jimmy Garoppolo. We already know that he can play very well because he has. The question though is more for the Jets is that we haven't really seen a lot of Darnold. How will he perform at this point? We'll see how that goes. I think that the game's over now. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how Darnold progresses. I think that he could do really well in the league. Right now, I'm just, I'm hesitant to say anything with him. I'm not like super high on him right now. I think he'll get better, but right now I think it's like I'm not too sure about him. I think that a lot of people got really excited about him, but there just hasn't been anything like overtly impressive. But yeah, this is only the second rookie quarterback I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure because there was the Cardinals with Josh Rosen. There's Josh Allen with the Bills, Lamar Jackson. Yeah, the Baker Mayfield. I know we talked about already with Cleveland. Yeah, okay. We're probably gonna talk about them in that order. Josh Allen probably first. Oh, actually no. We'll probably be talking about Lamar Jackson and Josh Rosen first before Allen, because fucking I still can't believe the Bills made the playoffs. Jesus fucking Christ, that's insane to me. Alright guys, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I just realized that I was clicked on my OBS screen for a while. So that probably means you guys haven't heard the game audio, which is okay. That doesn't matter as much. I'll see how long that lasted. But thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Be good to one another, be kind to one another, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.